Well, good morning, everybody. Our first map today is from NOAA, and it is the all hazards weather map. We kind of take a look at what's going on west to east here. We're watching for flooding issues right here in parts of Utah, getting into Idaho. This, of course, will be snowmelt. We have a high wind advisory that's out for parts of Montana. A big section of the country here without too much going on. Come down to Texas. These are air quality advisories. This is a flood watch that's out for parts of Mississippi. Dense fog where we just watched the severe storms rip through yesterday. And then as you get here from the kind of the Great Lakes into New England, there is patchy frost. We're watching for frost advisories. There's even a freeze warning at the end of Lake Ontario. And then, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, down here to New Jersey. This is all red flag warning for today. And the frost forecast has been quite challenging here over the last week or so, just trying to figure out how great the extent was going to be of this frost. So again, we just have right into this area this freeze watch that's in place that we just need to keep a close eye on. But if any of you are watching this and live around the Great Lakes, yesterday was kind of interesting because we saw from yesterday through this morning the winds come across the cold lakes blowing in this direction. Now, historically, I would have called this kind of a backdoor cold front. It's just coming from the northeast, or in some cases from the east. And we just typically expect our cold fronts to be coming from the west or from the north. In this particular setup, though, due to the presence of where this high pressure cell is, it kind of pushed the air across the cold lakes and ended up developing a very interesting front that ran off the lakes and has right now made its way all the way to this point. So that's through Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, back up into parts of, it's almost made it all the way to Sioux Falls. So it's just interesting to see that front, and it's all associated, too, with this low that's developing in Canada. So this morning's early morning temperatures, we did get you can see here the temperatures below freezing in this area, but a lot of just cold air in the 30s and 40s coming off those colder lakes. So just kind of a fun thing to watch here. Now, it was captured on satellite. This was this morning as the sun rose. So let me take you back to yesterday. And what we're going to watch here is the wildfire smoke from the fires in Alberta and British Columbia. That's the smoke that's still moving through here. But I want you to keep an eye on Lake Michigan, because what you're going to watch coming off of Lake Michigan is going to start to show up in the shallow cumulus field. You see it right there? That is the leading edge of the frontal boundary. We could see it on radar. We could see it on satellite. And just as the sun was setting here, the smoke just overpowered it. You couldn't see through it to see those clouds, but that was the position of that particular front. Now, speaking of the smoke, this is just an animation of what we expected to do over the next couple of days. So there's a low that's curling here into Lake Superior. See it coming out of central Canada toward Lake Superior. So the smoke is kind of tracing out what the atmosphere is up to. And there'll be another front, a normal one, coming behind this one that's going to knock temperatures back in the Canadian Prairie and Northern Plains. And that cold front will eventually slide all the way through much of the central United States. The west is still under the influence of a larger ridge, so you can see the smoke here still getting pushed farther to the north out of British Columbia and Alberta. And that's just indicative of the heat that is still in the west here in the near term. But with that heat in the west, we did watch, it's kind of a great animation here. Let me play this for you. We did watch over the last 24 hours just the presence of those storms popping off the mountains here. So you'll see going through yesterday, watch the storms just build. It's all lightning strikes from those storms here. And while that was happening, the severe weather was rolling through parts of the Appalachian Mountains and surrounding states here. Now, taking a look at those severe weather reports, this is from the Storm Prediction Center. Yesterday, 158 reports of severe wind, 25 reports of large hail. And so this was a significant event for this area. But just thinking about it, it did bring in some moisture into that region. So over the last 24 hours, through the Ohio River Valley, getting here into parts of the Tennessee Valley, but really up toward the Appalachian Mountains and over that into Virginia, North Carolina, we saw the heavier rains. Scattered storms throughout the southeast also brought in some beneficial rains. And then we can just see the presence of those storms. We don't have the greatest radar coverage, of course, in the mountains, but you can still see the thunderstorm action here and also in Texas. Also had a couple storms that ripped right here into parts of the western plains that produced some hail as well. Now, since the beginning of May, this is what our precipitation ranks by climate district look like. So I was just kind of seeing the importance of those rains getting over into this area here, where we're going to continue to see a little bit this morning. But it is not lost on me, of course, some of the numbers we're hearing from the wheat tour going through Kansas. And just to make sure we understand how terrible the drought situation is there. This is from August 1st through yesterday. And we're just looking at that long time period during which this winter wheat crop was in the ground. And you can see just the true extent of the drought that's in this area. During that time period, August 1 till yesterday, there are places in here that were drier than they were in the 50s, drier than they were in the Dust Bowl of the 1930s, and we're just seeing near record dryness over that time period. And that's including recent rain that came through parts of this area last week. Okay, going forward, the next couple of days, severe weather threat is not very high, but as we get out there to the 19th, as that front that I mentioned coming through the upper Midwest and northern plains continues to sag, we're going to watch to the south of it in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, getting right over here to the Mississippi River. And to show you what that looks like, we're going to go to the high-res NAM and just kind of play it forward from about 8 o'clock this morning. So as we watch today, still some lingering showers in parts of the Carolinas down in the southeast. Again, the flecked green you see here is just the storms popping on the heat of the day. And here's the front that's coming through. So this is associated with that low. And as it presses through by Thursday morning, getting here into Thursday afternoon and evening, we're going to watch for the potential for some locally heavier rains, maybe a thunderstorm or two with this. I haven't yet to fully assess if there's any sort of strong to severe risk out of it. But then that front just continues to sag farther to the south here as high pressure builds in. Now, this is not what I wanted to see in this area. As you note here, the pressure pattern is going to be extremely weak. That's light winds. To the south of it, that's where the front is and the potential for the strong to severe storms. But here, this could produce early on Friday morning the risk of some very patchy frost in western North Dakota. Now, yesterday, the models took all that out. The front was moving through faster, and the high pressure behind it didn't have a chance to establish and clear things out at the wrong time, which would be 6 a.m. But we need to watch this carefully. I'll bring more to that in just a second. The last thing I want to show you is we were watching all week long this system that was going to try to hug the East Coast. And you can see here that, let me take you back, this is now 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday, coming through South Carolina, into North Carolina, and then spreading up through Friday morning and midday up toward like coastal Virginia. We are expecting to see some rain out of this. So let's next go to the European model. I'm just going to show you one model today just to kind of keep this relatively simple. There's that system coming through. Here's the European model and its treatment of that low just off the coast by Friday morning. There's the high pressure cell I'm concerned about. And then we just see that low curl up through the Great Lakes, drag a normal cold front right here through this section of the United States by Saturday morning, and then kind of slide off to the east. Our flow pattern at this point is still highly convergent in the midsection of the country, and that's why we just tend to see things kind of getting cleared out as we work our way into the weekend. And where there's going to be rain is going to be kind of sitting at the base of this, right in through this area. That's going to be our best chance for some precipitation in the U.S. There's another low that curls up next week into parts of the Canadian prairie. Would love to see the rain from this getting over some of those wildfire areas. But as we just play this out about a week, that's when we expect to see the pattern begin to shift around a bit. I'm talking about after the 24th. So total precip, these numbers are relatively light for a lot of the country. If we just kind of take this out for a full week, we'll pause it right there at 1 week. We can see, there we go, some of the heavy rains from the coastal system, relatively light rain coming through on that front. Wettest place is probably going to be down here in this section of our southern plains, an area that continues to need more precipitation going forward. You compare all this to average, and that's what you got here. This is a 7-day precipitation anomaly map. So a lot of work is going to get done in this area to finish planting a crop right now. Now, when does this pattern start to shift around? We're getting some building evidence here that after we get past about the 25th, 26th, the jet stream is kind of doing something a bit more like this. And that could return some southwest flow into this area. And that's why the week 2 forecasts continue to show this wetter region just building farther and farther east, in the dry area just moving farther and farther east with time. So it looks as though we're still on that, week to 10 days on, week to 10 days off type pattern. But as I stated earlier, the most frustrating part of this forecast is now when we look at the new frost potential map. We were expecting this, right? We talked a lot about the interior of New England and then around the Great Lakes having the risk of having a temperature, below 35 degrees. That's what I consider potential if it gets below 35. But to see the models, let me rephrase that, to see the National Weather Service correct and go back over to the risk of a frost in western parts of North Dakota after yesterday's kind of taking out of the forecast is a bit frustrating. And we know we've always been watching for it, but just to see those temperatures drop back down there, just something we have to pay close attention to. So here's this morning's lows. Let's get into tomorrow morning. That's Thursday. That's when I expect the greatest extent into New England. I mean, these temperatures are just touching frost here, just to be clear. And then we know that when that front slides through and the high pressure comes in, look for those white contours. That's where the forecast is suggesting we will hit 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And we did investigate Hazen right here as a case point earlier this week. All right, so the cooler air slides south on Saturday, a lot of lows in the 40s here, and then we get into the weekend. Now watch the heat in the west. It begins to break down by Monday into Tuesday, and that's an indicator that this pattern is going to start to shift its way around. Can I show you high temperatures now? This is Wednesday's highs getting into Thursday. There's the extent of the cold front on Friday. As we play into Saturday, watch the heat in the west. I want you to focus right here. Columbia Basin, super hot Saturday. Temperatures may be getting up toward triple digit, but by Sunday into Monday, we clear this out. There's a system rolling through there that's going to try to drop the temperatures. But to get a system to break through that ridge is important to know. So we're just going to watch how that's going to clear things out. Before I show you the longer range temperature forecast, here's a quick update on your GDDs for the next 7 days. So we're just kind of looking here at total accumulated GDDs, 50 degree base, 86 max. So we're kind of just assessing these numbers here. And then this is what the temperature patterns forecast to do. So playing for this is a 5-day sliding window of average temperature anomalies. That gets us out there to the 22nd through the 27th. And then this will play us all the way up to the beginning of June. So overall, we see most of the Canadian prairie, the northern 2/3 of the U.S. experiencing above average temperatures. And we're just cooler than normal down here across the south. So remember, this is all relative, but that's what we're seeing here. Okay, last thing, I want to take you to South America quickly and just show you the latest forecast on total accumulated precip through this week. So we're watching for better storms later this week, getting into the weekend to come into parts of Argentina. Of course, we've been discussing the drought here all year, and then into pockets of southern Brazil out of Paraguay. But notice that the monsoon will not continue at this point, and we've got a big donut hole here, which means for the last week or so we've been able to see inside of this relatively clearly with our satellites. And the latest data from using NASA is that the NDVI values inside of this are quite high. So we're still well above average, just kind of giving us an idea about what this safrinha crop looks like. So I'll wrap it up there. I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk tomorrow. Thanks.